All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We've got some folks still jumping in, but we'll go ahead and get started with introductions and housekeeping here. Super excited to talk to you today about the revenue cycle management process. And if we jump to the table of contents, what we're planning to go through today is a couple things. One, how ASCs think about the RCM collections process. Two, what are the key steps in the RCM process? And how specifically do HST and Synergen think about those process steps? And where do we do some things differently? Where do we have some special sauce? And then finally talk about the reporting and analytics around that are super important. And before we jump into the content, I want to just do a couple of quick introductions here up top. My name is Nick Latz. I'm the CRO here at HST, and very excited to be joined today by Mel Gudno-Ordina from Synergen, who is going to be talking specifically about some of the process steps as we go through the presentation. So, Mel, do you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. As Nick said, my name is Mel, and I'm a managing partner and co-founder of Synergen Health. We are a technology-enabled revenue cycle management company, and been in the industry since 2004 when I had my first RCM company, which I got bought out in 2010. And Synergen has been in business for 14 years, so excited to share how we can help or to optimize the RCM process for ACs.
Fantastic. And so a few housekeeping things as we jump into it. One, we are recording this full webinar, and so we will email it to you. If any of the content that you want to keep and refer back to, we will send that to you afterwards. We do want to make this interactive. We've got a chat box open in the webinar where we encourage questions. We will be monitoring that, and so if we're not able to, we'll try to hit some of the questions within the flow of the presentation. If we don't, we'll have some Q&A at the end, and then for anything we don't get to, we'll follow up with you afterwards. So please drop questions into that chat box. So how do ASCs think about RCM collections? We want to give you our perspective from an HST Synergen perspective. And just stepping back from an HST perspective, we've been in this ASC market for over 20 years now, helping our customers with the revenue cycle process from a software perspective. And so with over 2,000 customers at this point, we've got a really good vantage point into how their RCM process is working for our customers, what's going well, and where there are opportunities for improvement. And recently, we are seeing that the RCM landscape is changing. There's a couple dimensions to that. One, payer behavior is becoming more aggressive. Payers are tightening their rules. The rates of denials industry-wide are increasing. And as everybody realizes, prior authorizations, the scope of prior authorizations is expanding. And so the work that is required around the payer dynamic is getting more complex. At the same time, contracting is complex, especially for independent ASCs that are trying to negotiate great rates. It can be difficult to navigate those payer contracts. And then additionally, one of the trends we're seeing is that multiple entities, think a clinic paired with an ASC, paired with anesthesia, the billing for that is often bundled together, and navigating those multi-entity billing scenarios can be complex. Third, staffing and hiring, especially from a billing and coding perspective, is challenging for ASCs, especially ASCs that may be outside of some bigger markets, but really universally across the board, we're seeing more folks with specialized coding skill sets actually exiting the industry that are be hiring versus what's being hired in from a net new perspective. And so with these specialized skill sets, hiring and retention is very much top of mind and very much increasing in complexity. And then fourth, there's more and more pressure from ownership groups. As ASC industry is facing some consolidation, as ASC costs are increasing and the revenue reimbursements aren't necessarily increasing at the same rate, there is more and more pressure from ownership to get every dollar that we can and make sure we're getting paid on an on-time, in full perspective. And so, given these changes that are going on within the landscape, the question that we hear a lot from our customers at a high level is, how can we collect our full net revenue and speed up time to collection in what is a complex and changing environment? And so when we step back and think about that and talk to our customers about their options, at a high level, there's really three models to consider. This is a high level, and there's some hybrid options as well. But option one is internal billing team, right? And a lot of the ASCs in the market bill internally. And so this is where RCM is done internally by a team of billers and coders that you would hire and have on staff. And so what are the pros of that? The pros are when you have an internal billing team, an internal billing process, you have full control over your RCM process. It's your team, your process, you're managing it. At the same time, full control over your resourcing and staff. The cons of that model can be, as we mentioned at the top, it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit and retain experienced RCM staff. And so, because of that, and especially if you are part of a big group with multiple ASCs, this can lead to single points of failure, right? If you've got a smaller billing team, anytime you have unexpected attrition, or even if you have, PTO of key resources, this can bring apart single points of failure where you can fall behind or even make errors within the billing process. The third is without a lot of scale, without the help of a third-party partner, or if you don't have the benefit of a lot of scale in your billing process, it can be very difficult to stay on top of nuanced best practices that often differ across payer procedure combinations. And then finally, if you're billing internally, you're not always able to take advantage of the full benefits of technology and increasingly the benefits that AI is starting to play in this process. So that's the first option, internal billing team. The second option is partnering with what we would call a traditional RCM partner or vendor in the space, and so this would be to outsource to what we call a people-driven RCM provider. The RCM providers that have traditionally been in this ASC space. So what's the pros of partnering with a third-party RCM partner? Well, one pro would be that it eliminates the need to recruit and retain your own internal staff, take that staffing burden off of you. The second is that you would, in this scenario, because you're partnering with an expert, be able to tap into best practices and stay on top of those nuanced best practices. What are the cons? One con would be you lose control over that resourcing that we talked about because it's not your staff, it's your partner staff. Another con would be that this RCM process can be very people-based when you use a traditional RCM vendor or traditional partner versus technology-driven. And sometimes in these people-based scenarios, what you see is that when you partner up with an RCM partner, you can initially be given the A team, and then over time be switched to the C or D team from a people perspective, and that can cause some impacts on performance. The people-based nature of the model can lead to attrition and turnover, even if it's not your team, and lead to errors and slower collections around that. And then the final con that we wanted to call out about the traditional model is that there can be a lack of visibility in a real-time basis into your metrics. So a lot of times the model is just to provide monthly reporting or bi-weekly reporting versus being able to see 24/7 where exactly are you on your KPIs and where exactly is your AR. And so that leads us to the third model. And so the third model is a technology-driven RCM partner. What is a technology-driven RCM partner? This is when you outsource to a more modern, technology-driven partner for RCM. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means kind of later on here in the process. But there are a couple pros to this model that we wanted to call out. One is that the technology-based nature of the approach and leveraging the technology and platform aspects reduces the errors that can occur in the process and maximizes collections, right? Anytime that you reduce the amount of people-based touch points for errors, we can reduce those errors. The second is this technology-based approach provides that real-time visibility that we mentioned, where 24/7 you can log into a SaaS-based platform and see exactly where are you with your revenue cycle. You don't have to wait to the end of the month. And the third advantage is it can be lower cost versus the options 1 and 2 that we mentioned. So those are the three options at a high level. And what we hear from a perfect world perspective is a lot of times traditionally ASCs in the market have thought about their RCM process from a cost perspective. What's our cost of these collections? How do we minimize cost per collection? And what we're hearing with the more proactive customers that we have today and the customers that are really maximizing this process is, hey, we really want to turn RCM from a cost driver into a strategic revenue engine. And so what that means is, how do we have an RCM process that consistently collects your full reimbursement opportunity, provides full transparency into the performance around that, and unlocks critical business insights? And so no matter what model you choose across those three models that we laid out, the key steps in the RCM process are really consistent. It starts at the front end with insurance verification authorization, flows through to charge capture and coding, claim submission, patient billing and collection, patient posting and reconciliation, denial management reporting. These are all, no matter if you do it yourself or partner, these are all the standard steps. But I think it's really important to understand that not everybody takes the same approach across these steps. And from an HST and Synergen perspective, we partnered together on this RCM process to deliver a differentiated model. And so I'm going to turn the mic over here to Mel, who's going to talk specifically about, for each of these process steps, how does HST and Synergen together partner in a way of doing these things, which is doing them in a way that's different from, I think, how the markets traditionally approach these. So Mel, I'll let you jump in here.
Thanks, Nick. So the first one is the insurance verification and authorization. So this is one of the steps Nick was talking about. We see major errors and denials happening because of not doing this right. So the key process is to check eligibility and benefits for insurance and making sure that the addresses and then the policyholders' relationship information is obtained. And then the prior authorization is done correctly, which is typically done at the surgeon's office, right? So what is different the way we approach it? So we do it with 3 automated insurance verification checks at scheduling, then first of the month and 2 days prior. And why is it important to do it at the first of the month and 2 days prior is because if you set an appointment maybe mid-month and you have the surgery the next month, there's a high probability that the insurance may be lapsed by the time that you do the surgery. So with this automated check that you do at the change of the month as well as 2 days prior, you eliminate that possibility. And the other one is, the prior authorization, as I said, is done at the physician's office. And most of the surgery centers let the physician's office make that dictate whether they should get a prior authorization based on that procedure and the pair. And what we are doing is we are tracking the appointment at the time that the appointment is set and see what procedure is done and which insurance carrier is done. And we maintain a database and we'll notify the ASC saying, look, this combination of pair procedure combination requires a prior. Please notify the surgeon's office to get that prior so that you are not going to do a case without the prior authorization. So the benefit here is you're not going to lose revenue because of this type of denial happening. Okay. Next is charge capture and coding. This is really to assign the right CPT and the ICD codes and making sure that you're capturing the implants and the chargeable drugs as well. And making sure that the documentation is accurate. Now, we have this saying, right? From a coding perspective and billing perspective, what the surgeon does needs to be documented. What is documented should be coded, and what is coded is what is billed. And where we see the gap is in the documentation. So if you are just in traditional manner, you are using an external group or service, or even internally you're coding, you might be missing some things. For example, if you're not the physician is not specifying the diagnosis code, and you code it and you submit the claim, there's a high probability of that claim getting denied, saying unspecified code. There's also a possibility of the physician not documenting that they ever used an implant or some type of drugs that should be captured in the billing. So by doing this and having an AI-assisted coding the system and putting rules on top of based on the pair procedure, we're able to reduce any missed revenue and errors and denials. The next one is claim generation and submission. This is to be able to compile the charges and submit the claims electronically. Again, here, what we're doing differently is we are flagging those claims, especially the ones that probably have an implant or other component that you should have in terms of billing. We can flag those before it's submitted so that you're not submitting without having those implants in the claim. We've seen a lot of denials or underpayments happening because people have not captured that information. And we also are tracking the productivity. And why is that important? If we are productive, we can lower our costs and we can share those savings to the client. And then also having the claims go accurately, it speeds the cash and payments. So next one is the collections and denial management. Now, this is really the heavy lifting, right? So the key process here is to identify root causes for the denials, and then you correct any errors that you made in billing and resubmit the claims or file appeals or submit medical records. And what we do differently is we have a technology that we've integrated with HST, which is a predictive collection and denial management and workflow system. What it is, it's a rule-based engine where we've created a playbook based on the pair, the procedure code, denial code, and remark code, and said, how do you fix the claim? Now, most of the organizations are heavily dependent on that individual's knowledge to determine how to fix a claim, right? And especially when you're dealing with complex procedures, or if you're dealing with, for example, in a management company, you have a lot, or you have multiple centers, and people are churning, it is very difficult to be able to keep up with these denials and figuring out how to fix them accurately. And most of the time, you're doing these one at a time. So with this system, we can, bulk fix it. So we can group all the denials together, which are similar, and fix it together. So that is, you have efficiency. And then we also have machine learning that is tracking to see how are these fixes paying, and it will flag it so that you have to go in and tweak those denial playbooks to make sure that the corrective action is getting the results that you want. So the key benefit here, also, we have the automated appeal process that you can submit appeals through an API or using robotics process automation and submit those claims and submit those appeals through the payer portal. So the key benefit, you can increase the collection, then reduce the denials and increases efficiencies. The appeal throughput goes up, and it truly reduces the human errors that can occur as well. The next one is payment posting and reconciliation. This is where you apply payment and adjustments and also do the patient balances and reconcile the payments with the bank deposits, right? So you'll be surprised to hear that when we go in and engage, we've seen clients that seem sophisticated, but they don't balance the payments or update everything at the month end. So our systems and processes can track underpayments. Today, we are seeing between 3 to 5%. Even if the payment comes in, they're underpaying compared to the contract rates that are there. So we are tracking that information. And then the system has the ability to do the ERAs, right? Electronic remittance can be auto-posted, and even the patient payments that are coming in through HST Pay can be auto-posted in the system. So what the benefit is, increased collections, and again, reduces the effort that is there, which means reducing the cost to the client. The next one is the patient billing and collection. Now, this is becoming a bigger component because with the high deductible health plans, how you collect those payments, both pre and post, is important. Also sending the statements, typically post date of service, and then following up on those balances. How do you do that? And with our process and the systems that are in place, for example, with the HST Clarity, we can estimate what the case cost is going to be prior to the case is done, so prior to date of service. We can also send text messages and emails to the patient so that they could come up with either a payment plan or to determine how to make that payment. And then after, if there are payments that have to be paid afterwards, we can send outstanding balance reminders to these patients, right? So you're not sending, paper statements, or making phone calls. People don't really like these phone calls coming in. And what are the benefits here? It's pre-date of service collections that will go up. Patient experience, again, is going to be, these are the same patients that you're working with, who are making those payments for their cable bills and telephone bills online. Why aren't you providing the same type of service? So that's kind of what we're doing. It reduces the bad debt and also reduces the amount of time and the cost of doing patient collections. Okay. The next one is reporting and analytics, and this is something that we say what is not measured cannot be managed. So this is something I think Nick also mentioned. Typically, what you see is static reports that are generated. Again, you do track the KPIs like days in AR, denial rates, clean claim rates, things like that, and maybe by provider as well. But most of the time, it is a static report. So what we have is an analytics platform that is there with 400 plus algorithms. It tracks almost real-time visibility of your KPIs and your key performance indicators and the metrics. It's updated on a daily basis. It also has a predictive and prescriptive analytic component, and I'll share a couple of slides on that, what that looks like. Also, the systems can do case cost analysis, underpayment analysis, and then custom reports, right? We've talked to administrators that stress out when there are board reports that have to be done. They have to create all these reports on a manual basis. We can create all those templates in the system, in the dashboards. At any time that they have to have a report done, they can just cut and paste it into the PowerPoint and present it. So the benefit is key visibility to your operations, so you can be proactive in what you do. And it also decreases all the manual data analysis that needs to be done. So this slide shows a quick snapshot of the analytics dashboard. And if you can see on the very top, there are multiple tabs. It says dashboard, billing analysis, submission, and so forth. So what this dashboard does is it is following the life cycle of a claim. And this is kind of the main dashboard page. It has charges, claims, and deposits, and it does a comparative analysis of month to month as well as year to year to see how you're doing as a facility. In the middle, there are about 12 KPIs. We can customize it based on what you may be tracking. It can go green or red, depending on thresholds that you set. And I think the most important is on the left side panel. It shows rendering providers or referring providers. You can do case type and then facilities. So this is for example, an enterprise view. And so at any time that you want to look at, we say, you're managing multiple facilities and you want to track one facility, you can click on that facility and the entire dashboard changes to that facility. Or if you want to answer questions, if a provider calls an administrator and says, hey, what are my cases doing? How are my payments looking like? They just have to click one button and then the entire dashboard changes to that provider. If you go to the next slide, this is a quick snapshot of the denial prediction and predictive analysis slide. If you look at the table on the top right, it shows it by date of service months. It has actual denials and predictive denials, right? So what predicted denials, hopefully if you're tracking your denials and your root causes and you're fixing it, your actual denials should continuously be lower than your predictive denials. Same way, if you look at the table at the bottom right, it shows you the denial category month over month. So you can see the trend, you can be proactive in what you're doing and see where you should focus so you could reduce those denials that are coming in as well. And then finally, this one is the waterfall report. Here in the total, it shows you in the y-axis, all the deposits by deposit month or by posted date. And on the x-axis, it shows you when the billed date was for those type of claims. So for example, if you look at April 2025, there was 3.7 million that was posted that month. And then that money came in from claims that were submitted in April of $1.1 million came in, 1.6 came in March, and so forth over the months, right? So you can look at the dollar value or by percentage basis. And this is really, really helpful for you to be able to project cash flow. So again, if you want to do this manual basis, you'll have to do a lot of pivot tables and Excel spreadsheets. That is all eliminated. And the goal here, again, as I said, between 3 to 4 clicks, you can answer the questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nick.
Thanks, Mel. So how do you know how well your revenue cycle is performing? If you're going to take a screenshot of any of these slides, I recommend this one. We call out some key metrics here that can help assess how your process is going. Couple that I would highlight here. One is DSO, days sales outstanding at the top. Should really, from a benchmarking perspective, be less than 42 days. Another one I would call out is collection percentage as a percentage of net revenue, row 3. Should be north of 95%. Bad debt should be less than 2.2%. And then denial should be less than 5%. These are top quartile benchmarks that we see in the industry. They can just give you kind of a North Star view of, hey, is it worth is it worth looking into my process to see if there's improvement opportunities? And then, if we go to next steps, for anyone that is interested in digging deeper into the RCM process, one of the things we do offer is a free, no strings attached, what we call a revenue cycle performance assessment. And so in the revenue cycle performance assessment, what we do is we partner with you to pull out some key metrics and data from your practice management system. And then we actually are able to run some analysis on our side and come out with a performance assessment that shows some of the key leading indicators and some key metrics across all those stages of the RCM process that we went through. And then as part of that assessment, we can walk you through that and show you where you might have some opportunities for improvement across your RCM process. Again, that's kind of a free, no strings attached next step that we can provide to anybody that's interested. So with that, I wanted to make sure we opened it up and had some time for questions.
And also, Nick, from an assessment perspective, it takes about 5 to 7 business days from getting access to the system, to the HSC system. We just only need NDA and a BAA signed, and immediately after we can get that assessment done, and it'll provide you a pretty detailed analysis of what and how you're doing. So if you have not done an assessment recently or benchmark, it'll be a great one for you to be able to see how things are and areas where you maybe need to focus and maybe leaving money on the table.
Well, if there's no questions at this time, for folks that are interested in following up, we plan on sending out this recording to everybody that registered for the webinar. If you're interested in getting a hold of me, I can be reached at nick.latz@hstpathways.com. And Mel, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
It's mgunn@synergenhealth.com, but we'll send you that information when we email this, or through you, Nick, we can get that information. I'm happy to provide more details about the analytics platform that as a standalone, you can get that. Even if you're running your operations internally, we can provide those tools for you to be able to help you get more visibility and transparency. Okay.
Thanks so much, Mel, for joining us.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Oh, yeah, one. I think there's a question that has come in. What are the costs for the system? Is this the analytics system? I think it's by facility. I think they range between $300 to $400 a month. I think that's the cost of the system. So it's pretty inexpensive. And if you have multiple centers, the costs go down as well. So I think that's what's the question. Okay.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much,
everyone.
everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Take care.